Baldur's Gate 3 is an amazing and immersive game with so much going on in the world and so much to explore that sometimes simple mechanics or features that could make your game that much simpler aren't obvious from the outset. So I figured I'd share a few of the quality of life tips that I've learned along the way to make your game that much more streamlined. If there's anything you'd like to add or think that I missed on a particular point, be sure to let me know in the comments section below. Dungeons & Dragons and Baldur's Gate games have a rich history that often foreshadows or clues into what's going on in the wider world and the story you're involved in. In the digital games, this generally comes in the form of books and scrolls strewn about the in-game world. Be sure to sift through book stacks, shelves, chests, and even bodies for the written word. Not only is this engaging if you happen to be a bit of a lore buff for the Forgotten Realms that are part of Dungeons & Dragons, but also acquiring this knowledge is noted in the game itself, and should a dialogue encounter pertain to something you've read, you'll gain access to unique dialogue options that will help to progress the conversation further and potentially unlock another bit of information. Being a loot goblin in Baldur's Gate 3 will lead to amassing a vast sum of wealth, and given that each new area has a vendor of some kind that has weapons, armor, and other useful items for sale, means that you'll want as much gold as possible. After all, I'd hate for you to miss out on that shiny new sword. Luckily, everything that you pick up can be sold to any vendor, even the rotten food that you'll often find in crates that haven't been opened in some time. When combat starts, all involved in combat will roll what's known as initiative. This is primarily skewed towards characters with high dexterity, though the RNG of dice rolls is also a factor. More often than not, you'll notice your dexterity-based characters taking the lead in most combat situations. The combat order will be displayed at the top of the screen with player-controlled characters in blue tiles and the hostile characters in red. What isn't particularly obvious at first nor explained clearly is that if two or more of your characters are adjacent in the combat lineup, they all share the same initiative value and can be controlled in your preferred order. This is particularly useful for your mechanical characters like clerics and buff spellcasters to buff the melee or range fighters in your group with spells such as haste or bless. Get your buffs out of the way should the initiative order allow, then send the combat specialists in to do their thing. Throwing is an underrated yet hugely useful mechanic in Baldur's Gate 3. Available as a standard feature to any player, throwing will use the player's action and can be used in a variety of ways. The simplest of these is to throw weapons and chemicals such as alchemist fire or acid, allowing you to damage and inflict a status to enemies as well as a surface area. Weapons with the thrown property will deal their stated damage, however anything without that property will be classed as an improvised weapon and deal 1d4 instead. Potions can also be thrown at allied players to heal or revive, as well as apply the buffs of other potions such as haste or elemental resistance, and should you have one or more players grouped tightly together, can apply the effects to more than one. This is especially useful to maximize your action economy and free the player's bonus actions up for something else, but it's not just potions and weapons that can be thrown. So long as the throwing player is strong enough, you can throw living creatures too, so long as they aren't too large or heavy. This can be used to great effect if you need to clear the battlefield in a hurry and take enemies out of play. Surface conditions can be used to devastating effect in Baldur's Gate 3. Utilizing elements such as acid, fire, or web to name a few, you can shape the battlefield and make enemies reconsider traversing certain areas. Damage and slowing effects can weaken the advantage of superior numbers and funnel enemies into areas that your ranged fighters and spellcasters can make short work of what might have otherwise been an extended engagement. Keep throwables such as alchemist fire and grease at hand to turn normal flagstones into difficult terrain for foes, and take note of any surface that shows up as water. Even using the cantrip Ray of Frost to turn water into a slippery, icy surface can change the pace of a battle. Inventory management can make your adventuring life a lot easier in Baldur's Gate, so here's a few tips that will make things less chaotic. First and foremost, using the sort button at the top of your inventory sheet will allow you to sort based on a few different criteria. Latest is a good one if you know you picked something up recently but cannot remember what it was. Type is good for when you want to start clearing out your inventory of a specific type of item, like weapons from fallen foes. Speaking of cleaning out, once you've sorted your inventory, clicking on an item, then clicking on another item while holding shift will select all the items in between those two selected items, allowing you to then move or transfer them as a group instead of one by one. If, however, the items you wish to select aren't all next to each other, holding the control key and selecting items will highlight those items, allowing you to move them as a group. In regards to moving items as a group, you can drag them between character inventories, or if you're just looking at one inventory, dragging it over their character picture on the left side of the screen, then releasing will transfer it to that character. Alternatively, you can left click on an item or a grouped collection of items you will have the option to send to, either a particular character or even the camp, which is a collective loot box that has no maximum capacity, so you can essentially send everything there if you like to hoard. Be sure to utilize extra bags you pick up in the open world to organize your consumables. Keeping potions in a single bag so they don't clog up the inventory, or other items such as scrolls, arrows, or throwables can keep the visual chaos to a minimum. As your adventure progresses, camp supplies, such as the random bits of food you collect, will start to weigh your character down, especially if they aren't particularly strong. Sending these supplies to the camp storage will free up more weight allowance and can still be easily accessed by the campfire when committing to a long rest. While looting in the field, you can drag an item directly from an inventory to the character tile of your designated mule, like our strong girl Karlak here. Love you, Karlak. Around the world, you will find many barrels with useful chemicals inside, whether it be the flammable fire wine and oil or the explosive gunpowder, not to mention the underrated but useful water barrels. You can use these barrels in combat to shape the battlefield, but if you don't have an immediate use for them, pick them up by right-clicking and selecting Pick Up. Sending these to your camp for a rainy day can allow you to preset a battlefield with enough damage to make the fight end before it's even really begun. Don't sleep on the water barrels either. Turning a battlefield into an icy or electrocuted quagmire can often allow you to reduce the effectiveness of enemy numbers. In Dungeons & Dragons, action economy will win more fights than not, and Baldur's Gate 3 is no different. Each player will get movement, an action, and a bonus action to use before the end of their turn, so be sure to use as much of that as you can, as it all resets on the next turn and doesn't stack. If a character doesn't have anything to do but still has an action or bonus action, consider using the bonus action to quaff a potion, attempt to shove on an enemy, or even use the action to throw an item, whether it be a potion to heal an ally and allow them to use their bonus action for something else, or even a bottle of grease or acid to control the battlefield a little bit more. Sometimes in Baldur's Gate, it's beneficial to split the party. Whether it's because you're a rogue that wants to go skulking about without the rest of the party drawing attention, or you're planning on having one companion make the sacrifice play so that you can resurrect them after. Maybe it's for a puzzle. Either way, it's as simple as dragging the character portrait away from the group and disconnecting them. You can pull one away or split the group in two. An important thing to remember though is you'll need to reconnect them to the party when done, either by dragging their portrait back into the fold or pressing the group toggle mode button. This is also useful if you left something back at camp but don't want to send the whole party to retrieve it. Split someone from the group, send them back to camp, collect the item, and use the power of magic to share items between party members. Neat, huh? And there you have it. Just a few helpful quality of life tips to make your journey to Baldur's Gate that much easier. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything new, hit that like button. If there's anything you think should have made the list, let me know in the comments section below. Stay safe, adventurers, and I'll catch you all next time.